In this video, we'll be looking at the foundations of algebra and recapping over some of the basics that you should know before going on to further sections in the algebra topic. Before starting this, can I recommend that you have watched the operations video so that you have a good understanding of BIDMAS, or the order of operations. We'll look at the four parts of an expression and how it changes to become an equation, how we can collect like terms with one or more variables, and how to evaluate equations using substitution. I get asked quite often what the purpose of algebra is, as we don't use it in real life. However, we use it all the time when calculating things like our monthly pay, income tax, or the weekly shop. We just don't recognise it as we use words instead of letters or variables that are used when practising the skills that algebra asks of us. Here we can see an example of an equation. Let's look at the different parts that make up the equation. First, we've got the variable, which is usually represented by a letter. Next to the letter is a number, and this is called the coefficient. It's worth remembering that what is happening between the coefficient and the variable is always multiplication. The combination of a coefficient and a variable is called a term, and this term could also constitute an expression on its own. But in this example, the expression includes multiple terms, as it does here. The plus 7 is also considered to be a term, even though it doesn't appear to have a variable next to it. All terms are separated by addition or subtraction. So this forms our expression. I always like to think an expression as the method that you're going to use to get an answer. We can't state what the answer is yet, as we don't know what the variable stands for, or what the equation equals in order to solve it. We are just saying how we're going to do it. However, this also has an equals sign, so we can move from considering this to be an expression to being an equation. Here we know that the expression equals y. It could have equaled the number, in which case there would have only been one variable, so we could have solved it, as we'll see in a later video. As the y is on its own, to one side of the equal sign, we can say that it's the subject of the equation. Quite often you hear people refer to a formula, but that definition is used when the equation refers to calculating something in real life and uses variables that represent what we're actually trying to work out. Equations tend to use letters and represent what the solution will turn out to be. An example of a formula would be A equals L times X, which would be the area of a rectangle equals the length times width. In this section, we're going to look at collecting like terms, which really means adding or subtracting the same variables or letters. For instance, in this first question, we have 5a plus 4a. If I was to turn around and say I had 5 apples plus another 4 apples, we'd combine them together and say that we have 9 apples. And that's exactly what you do with this question. Remember that the operation that is going on between the 5 and the a is multiplication. And so that's the case between the 9 and the a in the answer. In the next problem, we've got 7b plus b. Now this second b doesn't seem to have a coefficient, but it does. If we don't see a number there, we assume it's the number 1. So we can add 7b plus 1b to equal 8b. In the next one, we've got subtraction, 5c take away 3c. And we deal with this in the same way as we do addition. And we end up with 2c. In the next set of problems, we've got multiple variables. Now, because we don't know what the values of a and b are, we can't combine them because we're adding them in this expression. If we were multiplying them, we could write them together without a symbol in between them, as that would assume multiplication. As we're adding, we can look for the same terms. So we have 5a plus 3b plus 2a. So in that one, we combine the a's together and we have 7a plus 3b. In the next problem, we have 7b, add 2a, subtract 3b. So there, we can combine the b's together and we get 4b plus 2a. In this problem, we have multiple terms which both have the variable a in them. However, one is being multiplied by b, so therefore can't be considered as the same as just the variable a. So 4ab plus 3a plus 2a, we have two terms with a single a, and we can combine those by adding them together. So we have 4ab plus 5a. So here we're going to have a look at some problems using substitution, which is where we're told what a variable represents. And we're expected to substitute that in for the variable in the equation and then solve it. Now, before we start this, please let me remind you about BIDMAS. This is the order of operations. We always do brackets, then indices or powers, then division and multiplication followed by addition or subtraction. You substitute the values shown at the top for the variable in the equations and then solve them. If you want to press pause and work through these, and I'll go through the answers when you restart. So here, the values for these variables are a equals 5, b equals 9, c equals -3, and d equals 12. In the first problem, a equals 5, so we do 5 plus the 10, which would give us 15. The second problem, b equals 9, 9 take away 4 would give us 5. In the third problem, we've got 9 plus -3. Remember, adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive. So 9 take away 3 would equal 6. In this next one, we've got 16 take away 12, which would equal 4. Here we've got 7a plus d, so 7 times 5 plus 12. Remember BIDMAS, we do the multiplication first, so 7 times 5 will give us 35, plus 12 would give us 47. In this next one, we've got b over 3. Now that means that b is being divided by 3, and then we're subtracting a, which would be 5. So we've got 9 divided by 3 minus 5, which is 9 divided by 3 would give us 3. Take away 5 would give us -2. In this next one, we've got -4 multiplied by c, which is -3. Take away b. So we're going to do a negative times a negative. So -4 times -3 would give us 12. Take away 9 to give us 3. In question number 8, we've got 36 over d plus a. So d equals 12, so 36 divided by 12 would give us 3, plus a, which equals 5, which gives us 8. The next one, we've got a squared. So this means that it's going to be a times itself, or 5 times 5, which gives us 25. And take away b, which is 9, which gives us 16. Now we've got c squared. Now remember, c is a negative number, but a negative number times a negative number will give a positive. So c squared plus a is going to be -3 squared plus 5, which would be 9 plus 5, which would equal 14. Now we've got some brackets, and we've got a brackets d minus b, which equals 5 brackets 12 minus 9, which is 5 times 3, which would give us 15. And then the last one, number 12, we've got c, which equals -3, multiplied by b minus a, which is in brackets, so we have to do that first. So 9 minus 5 would give us 4, -3 times 4, negative times a positive is going to give us a negative answer of -12. So that's all the answers for these questions in this section. In this video, we looked at some of the basic knowledge that you'll require before moving on to the more complex area of algebra. We looked at the different parts of an expression, how it differs from an equation or a formula. We looked at collecting like terms, and we did that with one variable and then with more than one variable, and then solving equations using substitution. In the next video, we'll be looking at rearranging equations and then moving to solve them, by which I mean finding out what the variable or letter represents. I'll see you then.